Watching Morning at NTV.
This is Morning at NTV. I'm Arnold Sagawat. Just 14 minutes to 8 a.m. Let's delve into a particular interesting conversation around movement, that is people power. We do have the Executive Secretary General for the People Power Movement, who is Aisha Kabanda. Aisha, in today's, many thanks for making time to speak to us. In today's front page of the Daily Monitor, we do have the People Power, of course, the big man himself, Mr. Kyagulanyi, and there's an interesting article. In 2021, Bobi Wine asks Muntu Besigye to support him. It's getting quite interesting. At one point, we were under the impression that there might be a sole candidate when it comes to the opposition movements. Just give me an update on where things stand right now, at least from the People Power movement.
First of all, can I say good morning?
Morning.
Good morning to you and the viewers out there. It is indeed true that there have been all efforts to see us work together and be able to front a single candidate, and the efforts are still on. But some parties say that they are still underworking their internal procedures so that they have candidates and they are able to sit with us at the same table at equal levels. That's been a position of some parties. But the efforts are still on because we are all aware that united we are more stronger. I haven't seen any philosopher that is telling us that divided you'll do wonders. So we are making all efforts to see us unite and be able to front one candidate, and we all canvass support for that single candidate. The efforts are still on.
The efforts are still on.
Yeah.
So if a few weeks ago, there was a very interesting, a few photographs and, of course, a preceding meeting of FDC, former presidential candidate Dr. Kizza Besigye, together with Mr. Kyagulanyi. You know, it seemed like something had been worked out. Is there a particular update on that, or is this what you're alluding to when you say that efforts are still ongoing?
Oh, yes. What came out of our various meetings with FDC leadership is that we agreed to work together on activities where we think we can work together. We all realized that our enemy was not ourselves, because of fighting FDC, talking ill of each other, we had actually started fighting against ourselves. Yet we were supposed to be fighting against NRM and President Museveni. So we agreed to stop fighting each other and agreed to work together about particular activities. Yes, there was a kind of misunderstanding where people thought maybe it was a kind of agreement at that time that we had agreed that maybe one of them at that time had agreed to support the other. No, the first step was, can we agree to work together? And that's where we are so far. We need to break the ice. We need to create confidence that we can work together, and that's what happened.
But that's where, Aisha, that's where it gets interesting, because when you say that work together, as someone who's maybe sitting on the fence, who is thinking, I might vote for maybe People Power, maybe I might vote for NRM, maybe I might vote for FDC, aren't you splitting the vote kind of two-way? Still not at the presidential level. I'm now thinking at maybe MP level, maybe lower, maybe LC5, I don't know. Aren't you breaking the vote way lower if you say we might work together and you're not being as clear? I mean, you have such a short time.
We are still very hopeful. You see, you cannot force people into a direction. But we are still very hopeful because we know that these senior leaders actually, they prioritize Uganda. They put Uganda first. We are yet to see whether they have other ambitions other than having Uganda first, because Ugandans have shown that the candidate they would like to rally behind is Bobi Wine. But we also know that even a single vote counts, because Uganda says to become a victor, you need 50% plus one. So we actually do not want to lose votes, even at other levels, parliamentary and councillorship. We want to come out together as forces of change and have particular candidates for us and support them. And we are hopeful that we shall get there. The time is still there.
Right. Aisha, let's talk about possible scenarios. What happens if in 2021 we have seen Miss Honorable Robert Chagulanyi, he has picked the papers for the top job for the presidency. What happens, hypothetically, if he does not win the presidential election in 2021? What happens to him then, where he's not a member of parliament anymore? Is this a scenario that you have envisaged?
You know, hypothetical thinkings are informed by observations and some bit of, okay, the situations available.
No, scenario
Yes,
analysis.
Yes, we can make a scenario analysis. My scenario analysis is that, scenario analysis is that 78% of Ugandans are below 30 years of age. You can deduct maybe 40% that's underage, okay? So therefore, you have more than 70% of the voters we have in the age bracket of Robert Chagulanyi. And wherever he has gone, in all areas he has gone, people have indicated that actually, among other possible contenders, Robert Chagulanyi is the major contender. They have indicated this wherever he's gone. So I am not that pessimistic that there are chances of him losing this election.
Again,
what I know that there are likely chances of the regime to want to rig the election. That one I am aware,
right,
and
right.
we are working into that direction, protecting that level.
Right, and that answers the optimist's analysis scenario. Now, give me the pessimist scenario if he loses, because now you've answered what good could come if the demographics are in your favor, if people are lobbying behind Robert Chagulanyi, if he's doing shows online and you have over 30,000 people just going on YouTube just to watch them. That is the optimist. What happens if this scenario is not that good and things are grim and he loses his seat? What does he do then?
Out of which kind
if he runs for president, because again, you cannot.
But why do you want me to think pessimistically?
No, it's
okay, let me tell you what's in plan. What I know is that Honorable Robert Chagulanyi will win this election, but we are also aware that NRM will attempt to rig the election, and we are telling Ugandans, take charge, this your vote, at various levels. We shall protect the vote. We shall protect the vote by we know this scientific kind of election they're bringing in, they're looking forward to stopping people from being at the polling stations. So we shall be there, and if they dare rig our election, I think people will come out.
But Ms. Kabanda, do you have any tangible evidence on this? Because that is quite a strong statement if you say that you are aware that the incumbent regime will try and rig the election. Do you have anything substantial on this?
Yes, we have.
What's that?
If someone tells you he wants to go for a scientific election, make scientific campaigns. I mean, it's a situation where they know they actually stop some people to access the media. The media is limited to some people. The electricity is not there for people to get information. The infrastructure itself cannot facilitate a scientific election. Amidst an environment where we have seen that people are actually working together.
But that sounds like conjecture. That sounds like conjecture. You don't have anything substantial. You're using what safeguards have been put in place by a government not to have COVID-19 go and run rampage across the country, and you're using that as your evidence to substantiate what could be rigging an election. That is, I thought you were going to tell me something like ballots have already been ticked and we have this evidence.
Oh,
that
no.
What you're saying would not stand in a court of law.
You're looking at the end of it. Vote rigging or compromising the election process is actually also a process. It starts with the process, not the end. If someone tells people cannot come together, well, in Arua 2 days back, they collected people together and we are distributing hose, and they're telling people cannot come together. If they're telling it's dangerous for people to come together, while you go in a Chikubo, you'll find zero social distance. Actually, people are all together. So the prevailing situation is like they just don't want to allow Ugandans to access information. They don't want Ugandans to go out and campaign and be informed of the ills of the NRM regime and what they've been able to do. It all goes without being said. It's clear.
Right. Fascinating response. Ms. Kabanda, let's talk about the flag bearer for the top job, Honorable Chagulanyi. Is there anyone who's running against him?
We didn't get anyone. We had desired that we get a couple of them and then we put them to test. But fortunately or unfortunately, we had one candidate.
That sounds like the NRM itself, where no one actually has the mantra to run against the top man.
No, you can't.
Is that what you're telling me? That People Power 2 has no one who can actually run against the top man?
We have several people, but this time they have their confidence in Robert Chagulanyi. If there is anyone, you can remind me of that particular person. I know in NRM, people have been vying for positions and they ask them to step down. I know. I saw a friend of mine vying for vice chairmanship of the party and was forced to step down, several of them. I personally picked papers to vie for the office of the vice chairman of Buganda region and didn't receive communication after I was declared a successful candidate. I was declared a candidate. I nominated through the process and the situation ended like that. For our case, I am not aware of any other person
This Buganda region example that you're giving is when you were...
When I was in the NRM.
Right.
Yes, I picked papers and I was successfully nominated. And the story ended at that. Finally, they declared one person. That's the party that I was supporting before. But now, I'm not aware of anyone that has expressed interest. I know they are there, but they have confidence in Robert Chagulanyi and they are sure he will be able to steer us through this process and this time around.
If you were to sum up Mr. Chagulanyi, who have not personally met, what would you say is his most defining feature as a leader? I don't want to say a politician, as a leader.
Yes, Honorable Chagulanyi as a leader, okay, number one, I like his courage. You know, you have to be so daring to be able to face NRM in this situation. So I like his courage, I like his leadership. He's leading in a very difficult situation, but he's able to make it. There are several forces that are trying to pull him against the unity, but he has continuously said, yes, together we shall make it. So he's focused. He's a focused person, he's courageous, and he's able to kind of pull people together.
In the past, you've had issues with berets, like one you're wearing right now. Many people here call them caps, you know, or hats. The red beret, which is synonymous with another revolutionary. He loves to refer to himself in that particular term, Julius Malema in South Africa, with the economic freedom fighters. And Julius Malema at some point has had some interactions, I would want to believe, with Robert Chagulanyi. How close is the EFF with the People Power movement?
I think the closest part of it is that they are people of the same generation as fighting for their space. That's the closest part of it. People of the same generation fighting for the leadership space, for the space to take charge of their country. They share ideas and kind of think ways of going through it. But Honorable Chagulanyi has confessed and said that he's his personal friend.
And what then would you say to someone like me who has seen Julius Malema and the EFF in action, and they can be radicals? On the other hand, it's like Malcolm X on one hand and Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X was quite radical, who believed that, you know, we have to get tough. This has to get physical for us to, you know, get our civil rights. On the other hand, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a firm believer in a peaceful movement. Bobby Wine has been arrested a few times. He's a firm believer in maybe something taking its due course. Julius Malema, very, very hands-on, very radical. Is this the kind of movement that you want to align yourself with? Someone as firm and radical as Julius Malema?
A struggle for freedom needs a combination of the two. You know, radicalism is difficult to define in a situation where you are struggling against people that are not willing to let go. You know, sometimes you need to take your stand. For example, if People Power was such a weak team, by now wouldn't be using the barracks. But why we continue to use barrett is that actually we took our stand and we knew our rights. Okay, so fighting a dictatorship, it needs a bit of courage to carry on what you might define as being radical. Okay, but in our case, we need a bit of combination, and that's what we are. We are a peaceful team, but we stand our ground. We know our rights, and we know no one will give us the rights on a silver platter. We just have to struggle for them, and that's what we are up to.
Right. Many thanks for that, Aisha. We are going to take a quick break. Maybe some parting words just before you go, leading up to the elections. There's been a few queries here and there on people power being quite inclusive. At least that's what you do vie on as a movement. Give me a sense of how open it is for everyone at the bottom to come in and get whatever papers they are necessary to run on the people power flag. Give me a sense of how easy that is, or hard for that matter.
Yeah, we are as open as you might think, because our principal has already said it, that we shall judge people by their actions. So when we called for expression of interest, we call upon every Ugandan that professes people power. That's the first thing. You need to be professing people power and not simply saying it, but being able to you disciplined enough, okay, so that you can abide by the decisions that are taken. If we say this is our candidate, that's the people we shall go with. So there's a set criteria that will be followed. One of it is that someone should be professing people power. Number two, you must be disciplined enough and honest. We are going to make a counter check on those people. Be disciplined enough. You should be able to, we shall judge you by your action. What have you been saying? So simply saying people power. What have you been doing on ground? Okay. So there's a criteria that's been set that the electoral commissioners can come and talk about.
Aisha, many thanks for making time to speak to us.
It's a pleasure.
That was Aisha Kabanda, who is the Deputy Executive Secretary General for the People Power Movement, just walking us through what the future holds for this movement. Remember, elections are just around the corner, and as per last week, Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi had already picked up the papers for the presidency. That's, of course, he is, to put it very plainly, a presidential aspirant. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Morning at NTV after this.